It's officially iced coffee season.
Never left.
But it's iced coffee season where the first coffee of the day is an iced coffee, not hot coffee, which means I have tons of energy. Hey everyone, I'm Saffitz. Welcome to my home kitchen. I am back with more episodes of Dessert Person, and today I am showing you a little more of a technique video. I'm gonna make something called rough puff pastry, which is a quicker, easier version of classic puff pastry, that really high-rising, flaky dough that you can buy in the grocery store. This is my homemade version, and it's really fun and easy, and I'm gonna show you how to make it. Now the process for making a traditional puff pastry is a little bit complicated and involved. The technique, you have to create a dough, and then you create this block of butter and you fold them together and roll it out and fold, and it's temperature sensitive and it's time consuming. So this is my version that I call rough puff pastry, which is a quicker version of it that basically gives you a very similar texture but without the very technical process behind it. But it is a very versatile dough. Perhaps you caught our tarte tatin episode where I made it there, but today I'm going more in depth. So check it out. Check it out. So I'm going to really slow it down and talk about all the steps and why I'm doing what I'm doing, and then how that produces something really flaky and delicious. The ingredients are very straightforward, same as for pie dough. I have all-purpose flour, kosher salt, unsalted butter, granulated sugar, and ice water. And that's pretty much it. Oh, special equipment. I don't know if this counts as special equipment, but I am gonna use a box grater. I have a large bowl. I'm gonna start with 3.5 cups of all-purpose flour. This recipe makes enough for 2 single crusts. So I always make this amount because I can cut it in half and freeze half. And it's always nice to have some frozen. So I don't think there's a lot of value in making less than this. Now, to this, I'll add 1.5 teaspoons kosher salt, granulated sugar, 2 tablespoons. The sugar, it's not a lot. The sugar is enough to promote browning when this bakes, but it doesn't make it sweet. So this could also be used for any kind of savory recipe. So now I'm gonna mix this together. Now I'm gonna incorporate the butter. So I use this 3 sticks I have here just for show. And I have 1 stick cut in half because I'm gonna use 1.5 sticks and 1.5 sticks. I'm gonna freeze half of the butter, and it's the frozen half that I'm gonna grate in to this mixture, and then the other half I'm gonna thinly slice. So let me show you how to do that. So you want the butter to be cold so that the butter does not melt into or absorb into the flour. You want it to have this take up space and be this discrete thing in between layers of dough. And what happens is, as the pastry bakes, that butter will melt, the water in it turns to steam, and it creates a puffing action, and that will give you that separation. If the butter were to be room temp, it would just kind of absorb into the flour, and you wouldn't get the same separation as it bakes. So this I'm gonna put in the fridge because I want it to stay cold while I do the rest of the dough. Ah, damn it. Cut that out. So the other half of the butter, we're gonna have frozen. Now this is completely frozen because it's been here a while. Partially frozen is fine. You basically want something firm enough that you can hold onto it and grasp it as you grate it into the flour mixture. So I have my box grater here. And I'm gonna use the large holes, although you could use this size too. And the first thing I like to do is to just toss it in this flour mixture to coat it. Makes it easier to grip. And then I'm going to grate the butter directly into the bowl with the box grater. And what happens is it makes these little tiny shreds of butter, and it is a way of working the butter into small pieces really quickly. So I'm down on the stick of butter. I have this little nub. It's the size of an acorn. First of all, I'm gonna go slowly so that I'm not gonna really, if I grate my fingers, I won't hurt myself. But once you get to this little piece, just throw it in. So I'm going to toss all this through, make sure all the butter is coated. Now, it's different than traditional puff pastry in a couple of ways. It is more like a hybrid of pie dough and puff pastry. And so we achieve a lot by incorporating butter this way first. With these little pieces of butter, it does contribute to flakiness, certainly, but it also is contributing to tenderness. So the smaller and more broken down your butter is in your pastry, the more tender it will be. I try to achieve a mix of tender and flaky by grating in some of the butter this way. But again, it still makes it nice and flaky, and we want that butter to stay cold. So now I'm gonna grab my sliced butter from the fridge. In they go. All right, so same thing, I'm gonna toss all of these to coat, and I wanna separate them. So if you have any pieces like this that are stuck together, you want to unstick them and make sure that they're nicely coated. Okay, so basically, the purpose of these squares of butter is to mimic what would happen if I made traditional puff pastry and I had this block of butter. So with puff pastry, you have, if you had like a super zoomed in version, like a cross section, you'd have dough, butter, dough, butter, dough, butter. And then as I described, you have it bakes, it puffs and separates. So basically, I'm trying to create those sheets of butter that are separated by pastry. So what happens as you roll it out is these pieces of butter flatten and widen, and you get something really, really similar to puff pastry when it bakes. So I have my ice water. So with pastry, whenever you're bringing it together with some liquid, it's always variable. I can't say with 100% certainty you will need this much liquid for your flour, because it depends on the type of flour, the brand, how old it is, the hydration, the humidity in the room, how you've stored it, all these things. So as a general approach, start with a half a cup of water. And I'm using ice water. Again, the colder this mixture stays, the flakier it will be. And also, when you are bringing a dough together and I'm adding moisture, it's when flour interacts with water that gluten is produced. And I don't want a lot of gluten because I, again, want something that's a little more tender. So now that I have the water worked in, I'm going to switch to my hands a little. And the idea is that I want to hydrate all of the flour as quickly as possible. I have everything really well tossed. I'm going to start to now work the dough a little bit more and try to bring it together. So I like to do this kind of like flattening motion inside the bowl. And this is why it's helpful to have a nice, large, wide bowl, where I'm not like kneading it the way that I would knead bread dough, but I'm trying to work it and encourage it to hold together into these pieces. I can already tell that I need a little more water. I'm going to add more now. One thing I like to do is start to bring it together. And then once I see it really like starting to hold together in larger pieces, I will lift those pieces out and set them aside. So here, like the dough is holding together, even though it looks really dry, it is holding together. So I'm going to transfer that to my work surface, just like that. I'm going to go back in, continue to find more of those pieces. All right, so now I have in the bowl, I have like my pieces that are holding together, and now I have much drier leftover mixture in the dough. In the bowl. I'm adding more water because I want to bring this together. So this is a method of not overhydrating, is it's like you pull out the pieces that are already hydrated, and then you continue to add moisture to what's left in the bowl to bring it together. If you underhydrate a dough, you risk not being able to roll it out because it's going to crack. But I would say if you were going to do one, it's better to slightly overhydrate than underhydrate, because once you have this rested dough, it's like harder to add moisture at that point. Okay, so that was that last little bit. Put it on here. Now this is a very useful tool to have. I've talked about it 1,000,000 times. This is called a bench scraper. I'm going to use this to help gather everything and move the dough around. So now I'm going to flatten this and wrap it up and then chill it and sort of show you how to get that really layered effect. But at this point, we've worked this dough kind of a lot, and I want it to relax and rest so that it doesn't start to spring back. So for now, I'm just going to pat it down with my fingers. You can use a rolling pin. Grab mine. Can you see this huge sink of dirty dishes behind me? Hope not. So as I'm flattening it here, what's happening is you can see where I had those squares of butter. Those squares are flattening and thinning out. Okay, so now I'm going to wrap it up. I've yet to find a really successful replacement for plastic wrap when it comes to wrapping pastry.
The whole internet wants you to know that beeswax
doesn't work that. You know what? I have a piece of beeswax. It is this big. That's not helping me so much in wrapping this. I know I gotta get more. I don't love it, I gotta say.
Oh, you have a swap.
Well, I have a swap, so let me show you. So I made the dough up to this step last night, and this is what it looks like. So I had these pieces of plastic that I had saved from something else, and I'm gonna actually reuse them again. So I had 2 pieces of plastic that I put in like a T shape. And I'll show you how I got it into this rectangular shape, which is what I want it to be, a rectangle, because I'm gonna roll it out into a rectangle. Whatever shape the dough rests in is the shape it will wanna be when you roll it out. So just keeping that in mind is really important. So I'm gonna transfer this to my plastic. I sort of loosely fold the plastic up and down, and then I roll with the rolling pin, and the plastic helps to force it into a shape with flat sides. Or straight sides, rather. All right, so here's my other piece of plastic. I set it right on top. And I try to imagine it being square and perpendicular to the other piece of plastic. Wrap it up. All right, so now I have this relatively squared off piece of dough. And you can see it looks much different like that. It's gone a little bit more translucent. Flour looks more hydrated. Like, this is all the moisture we need for this dough. So this will go in the fridge. This really needs to rest, I would say minimum 2 hours. You could really try to push it to 1, but it might not really hydrate in that amount of time. And then the next step after it rests is to roll it out and fold it, and that is how we multiply the layers and get something really flaky and high rising. So if you've caught episodes of Dessert Person where I was making pastry of some kind, you've seen me do this. So I'm beating the dough, and I'm gonna do that again here. And this helps to make the butter a little bit more pliable, but without having to warm it up. So I could just let it sit here and then roll it out, but then of course the dough is getting warmer, and I wanna avoid that. If you see, like, here's a little part that's maybe thinking about cracking, seriously, like, stick it, pinch it together, should be fine. So I'm going to dust a little bit of flour on my work surface. When you sprinkle the flour from high up, you'll get a better distribution across the surface, rather than if you were to, like, do that, you know? And now I'm just going to roll towards and away from me. I actually have to refer to the recipe because I don't remember how many times I roll and fold. I think I got to look it up. So I'm going for something that's more like a 1/4 inch thick as I roll. So if you're experiencing cracking like this, one thing you can do is press down as you roll. What does it say? What do I do?
I can't read.
All right, let me see that.
What book do you go to for all your rough puff needs?
My own cookbook, Dessert Person. Is that what you were getting at? Okay, so we do it twice. Okay, thank you. So I want to roll it into a shape that's about 3 times longer than it is wide. The dimensions aren't actually important as long as you sort of follow that basic rule of thumb and keep it that scale. So I'm going to move myself so that I can roll it longer. And I am intentionally keeping the drier side up because when I fold it, you'll see that will get enclosed inside the dough itself. So if your dough looks like this, that's okay. That is normal at this stage. I promise you it will come together. Also handy for cleaning off the rolling pin if you have any bits that are sticking. Now here's what I'm going to do. Using your bench scraper if needed to help you, I'm going to take the bottom third of this slab and fold it up. I am basically folding this slab into thirds like a letter. This side will fold up. Go ahead and flatten it. Then the top third can come on down, just like that. And there's 3 layers, 1, 2, 3. So I've now tripled the number of layers of butter in this pastry. All right, so now I'm going to repeat that rolling and folding process one more time.
Where does your mind go
When I'm doing that? I don't know. Into like a theta state?
Is that like Scientology?
No, that's what I thought it was. And now this is our more or less finished rough puff pastry. You could roll it out a little bit thinner to make it easier to work with because again, this is 2 portions of dough. If you know that you're going to use it in 2 pieces, you can go ahead at this point and divide it in half. Now each one of these is a single portion. These can get wrapped and then chilled. You can freeze these also. That's a really great thing to do if you're only going to use 1/2. Now I have actually a half of a piece of puff pastry dough that I had froze, I don't even know how long ago, like months ago. And I actually thawed it in the fridge overnight, and I'm going to show you how to make one of the most basic things you can make with flaky pastry, which is a cookie called a Pommier. For Pommiers, the ingredient list is very short. It's dough and some sugar, and then a little flour for the bench. This is granulated sugar. I added a little cinnamon. I have a recipe in Dessert Person for cinnamon and sugar Pommiers. In that recipe, I use Demerara sugar. This is just granulated because it's what I had. But you can omit the cinnamon. You could add a different spice that you like. You could add lemon zest. You could add finely chopped culinary grade lavender. I think that plain is great. Doesn't really need it. Okay, you can also put a little pinch of salt in it because everything benefits from a little pinch of salt. So now I want to roll this out into a big rectangle. So same thing. I think this looks good in terms of dimensions and everything. So get rid of all the flour on the surface. And actually, rather than flour, I'm going to use some of my sugar mixture. It's not sweet on its own, so we're just adding all that sweetness to it. Edit that out. Jesus. Oh God, too much iced coffee. When I made Pommies before, I've used like a little egg to coat it to get the sugar to really adhere, but I'm gonna wing it and omit it here. So go ahead and press that in really well. And actually, this is a good use for the rolling pin. This will help to adhere the sugar to the pastry. So here I have my slab. I'm going to sort of mark the midline. You could just, usually I eyeball this, but for the sake of explaining it, I'll mark it. And now I'm going to take, starting from the longer side closest to me, from right here, I'm going to roll it up into a spiral until I hit the center. Then I'm going to turn the whole thing around and do it from the other side. So I have these 2 spirals that are touching. So I often do, you'll see this often with Pommiers, there's a step where I turn the spirals on their sides and like press down and flatten really well. And that is to prevent lots of separating. Okay, and now I'm going to slice them. Pommiers, I cut them pretty hefty, maybe like, say, minimum 1/2 inch thick. So go ahead and turn them on their cut side. And as I cut, I'm squishing them back together a little bit. So Pommiers are a great thing to make if you have leftover pastry. You can basically mush pastry scraps together and use it to make, let's say, a slightly less pretty Pommier, but still a very delicious one. Okay, anyway, so now I still have more sugar. One thing I can do is coat them in more of this and even like give them a little flattening effect.
This is why they're called Pommiers.
Well, that's news to me because this is a technique I think I'm making up on the spot.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
Oh, is that your back?
my neck.
Oh my God. Are you okay?
Between carrying a sound kit and a child a lot, it
Yeah.
gets a little rough back there.
Well, I don't carry either of those, and I've been having back issues, so. I think it's what happens when you don't exercise your core muscles in 14 months.
Yoga, I'm telling you, it saves me.
I know, but I hate yoga.
Chopping
Fine.
wood.
Oh yeah, chopping wood.
Yeah, chopping wood.
I find yoga very not relaxing. Okay. I have my pretty little cookies. I'm going to put them on a baking sheet. These are all going to touch. This is one of those things where it's like, I know I shouldn't do this, but it's happening. I'll go ahead and do like a little extra sugar on top. I want to chill these because this pastry has warmed up a little bit. And when you want something to hold the shape in the oven, it's often helpful to chill it first. So I'm just going to stick these into the freezer until the pastry is cold, which shouldn't take very long, so maybe 5 or 10 minutes. And then I'll put them into my 375 oven. Where are these going to go? It's a fun game. Oh God. I can't get into the freezer at the moment, but I have to really do something about this disaster. So I wised up and I got a bigger baking sheet because I want to bake all of them. So I'm going to pull them out of the fridge. very carefully because there's a lot going on in here. So let me do this properly. Get these on here.
Don't push it.
I know, it'll be fine. Okay, I got it.
How much bigger are they going to get?
They do get quite a bit bigger. They puff. They puff roughly. All right, I'm gonna put these in the oven. Again, it's on 375, and I think they'll probably go about 15 minutes. But you know when they're done because they're golden brown and they should be sort of caramelized all over, and they'll be all nice and flaky. I didn't set a timer. I guess it's been more like 25 minutes, but I can smell that they're done. So you just want to bake them until golden brown. Ooh, they look so good. They didn't totally unravel, which I'm happy to see. But I want to show you, you can see here like all of that layer separation. You can see that they've puffed, they've separated, the sugar has caramelized a little bit. They look delish. All right, so I'm going to show you, I guess I'll take this one. So again, this is a level of doneness that I really like. This part is sort of caramelized. It's crispy and golden all the way through. Smells so buttery. It's a good sound. They're a little hot, so they're not quite snapping the way they would if they were cooled, but it's cool enough to eat. So look, you can see how there's all of this little flaky, all this flakage, I guess. I think, first of all, considering this is like 8-month-old dough, pretty happy about it. I think it really achieves what I want to achieve, which is that really flaky texture, but also a tenderness. So it's like, it's not tough. I don't have to really chew it. It is a great combination of something like a little more rustic like pie dough and really precise laminated puff pastry. So Pommiers are really one of the simpler things you can do with rough puff pastry, and obviously incredibly delicious, pretty low effort once you have the pastry, but it's really good for anything from galettes, something like tarte tatin, to savory pastries, turnovers, anything like that. Just endless uses you can use, sweet and savory. And try Pommiers, try something else. It's just a really good technique to have. And once you're able to create something flaky and you understand how it works, it's kind of a gateway to these more complex pastries like Queen Amman or croissants or something like that. So great technique to be familiar with, and I hope you give it a shot. So thanks for watching Dessert Person, and like and subscribe. I'm gonna eat my Pommier. Oh God. Sometimes I'm like, I'm amazing. These are so good. God, I forgot how good they are. I'm gonna save this for later.